So, have you ever had one of those jokes? One of those jokes that's kind of a family joke, but everyone in your family has a joke that's about them. My family has a lot of jokes, but every single one of us has a joke about us. For example, my joke is that when I was young, I had this rope swing. This rope swing was tied between two trees, and I would jump off of a platform and I would swing on this rope swing. But unfortunately for this rope swing, there was a newer tree that my dad had planted right in the way of where the rope swing would follow through. So one day, I decided that this tree, it really shouldn't be there. And I got a hold of these hedge clippers, but they're a little bit smaller. They're just for trimming little branches. And I decided I would trim every single branch my little hands could get a hold of and trim. I essentially pruned this tree, and that's the joke of my family. Whenever I get around scissors, or there's a new tree in the house, or plants, it's keep them away from me, because he'll trim them. And you see, my family has a lot of these jokes where my dad essentially is the origin of most of these jokes. He's a very, how would you say it? He's a very funny guy. He likes to poke fun, but in like a very loving way. So my dad will bring up these jokes to us at any given time. My mom, well, she's not very good at spelling. She's never been the best at spelling. And she loves to bake. And you're wondering to yourself probably, how do those two things really go together? Well, you see, one day my mom decided to make donut holes. So she whipped up all the dough, she put it in the deep fryer, she put it into boxes after they had cooled. And to reduce confusion with these boxes, she labeled them. Unfortunately, her bad spelling came into play when she tried to label the boxes. So a couple days later, we broke out a box of what we presumed was donuts. But the label, it didn't read donuts. It read Dugnuts. My mom had forgotten an H in the word donuts, which unfortunately drastically changes the meaning of the word. Now my sister was a mischievous one when she was little. She loved to play with my brother in somewhat devious ways. When they were younger, she decided that putting my older brother in the dryer was a great idea, and she proceeded to turn on the dryer. She insists that it was only for a few rounds, but nonetheless, my brother was tumbled in the dryer. Now, my sister also put my brother in the hide-a-bed. Now, if you don't know what a hide-a-bed is, it's this bed that is a couch, but it retracts and extends. So when you want to sleep on it, you pull out the hide-a-bed from the couch, you take off the couch cushions, it's a bed. There's this spring mechanism on a hide-a-bed that enables someone who's not quite as strong to put the hide-a-bed away easily. Unfortunately, it takes control after a certain point. So my brother, unbeknownst to him, got on top of the hide-a-bed, and my sister decided to close it. Now, she wasn't strong enough to take this hide-a-bed out. So there was a slight amount of panic. Parents were called, the authorities, and they rescued my brother from the hide-a-bed. Now my brother, he was a little bit less mischievous than my sister was, but he was a bit rebellious. He always wanted to keep up with the latest fashion trends, whether that be something crazy that we look back now and just laugh at, or whether that be something like a piercing. Well, my parents, they didn't really want him to get a piercing. They said, well, once you're out on your own, I guess you can get a piercing, but we wouldn't appreciate if you did it. Well, my brother, being his own man, when he left for college, he decided that he would go and pierce his ear. Well, unfortunately, trying to hide a piercing like that is somewhat difficult, especially when your parents come to your house a little bit early. Well, my parents, and me being a young child, following along with them, drove to his house, and we knocked on the door. But me, being the little scamp that I was, looked inside the window. And what do I see? But my brother with his earring in. Unfortunately, we had arrived a little bit earlier than was anticipated. So, quickly there was a scramble downstairs. I alerted my parents to the fact that he had his ears pierced. And the door was answered. Well, surprise, surprise, his piercing wasn't in his ear. So the first question my mom asks is, "Oh, where'd your earring go?" Well, there goes that surprise. Now my dad. I saved my dad for last because there are so many different jokes about him. He enjoys poking fun at people, but he's also the butt of a lot of jokes. So my personal joke, but at the same time, I just tease him about it, is that when I was a teenager, around 15, 16, I played a basketball game. Now, we lost this basketball game and I was quite frustrated afterwards. So I decided that, being the cocky teenager and frustrated as I was, I would go and hang on the rim of the school's basketball hoops. Well, unfortunately, I had just played a basketball game and my hands were quite sweaty. So that didn't go as well as I had planned, and I fell approximately 9 feet to the ground, smashing my wrist and my face. I had a bloody nose and my wrist wasn't functioning as it was supposed to. But my dad, being the astute doctorate that he is, spoiler warning, he's not a doctor, decided that my wrist wasn't broken, it was simply dislocated. He proceeded to attempt to relocate my wrist several times, despite me saying I'm fairly certain it's not dislocated. Well, even after his several attempts were unsuccessful, he decided that my wrist still wasn't broken, so we went to eat supper with a bunch of the rest of the team. This supper took approximately an hour because the restaurant was busy, and yada yada yada. I iced my wrist and my dad thought that should do it. It should be fine. Unfortunately, my wrist was most definitely broken, so after icing it for an hour, still was not fine. Reluctantly, he then took me to the hospital, upon his dismay, finding out my wrist is indeed broken. And that's something that I, to this day, will bring up from time to time to my dad. That despite his well-intentions and his insistence that my wrist was dislocated, it was in fact broken, and he is not, in fact, a doctor. Well, I hope you enjoyed the ridiculousness of my family. Share in the comments below the ridiculous jokes that you have with your siblings, your family, yada yada yada, whatever it be. Whatever it be. I said that. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Alyssa, please save me. Bye.